Hey, welcome back, everybody. Great to see you. Hopefully, we're having a wonderful day out there and getting ready for the new year, which is right around the corner. And I'll tell you, the pattern looks to change significantly as we flip the calendar into 2025. And we're talking the potential for a major cool down and big snow potential for an extended period here through the month of January. So, we're going to break all of that down for you in today's video. Now, before we get there, though, we do have some active ongoing weather in the severe weather department for many folks, and just some big old storm systems out west also that we need to discuss in today's video. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you haven't already subscribed, I'll ask that you please do so and hit the bell for the latest notifications, like the video, and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. But with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the weather forecast here for you and give you the latest information. Now, starting with satellite loop like we normally do, you can kind of see where a couple little pieces of energy are on our map. I'll go ahead and circle them for you here. One down into Texas, and then another storm system out here working into Washington state are kind of the two big pieces that we're watching right now. Now, per usual with the weather, these are going to work east across the lower 48, but it's the way that they do it that will be quite important for the forecast. And I think the next piece of energy after these two that you can't really see on the map yet will be the one that kind of changes the pattern up for us, and will also kind of do what this piece of energy is doing and move into the Pacific Northwest, cross the lower 48, and usher in that cooler air behind it. And from there on out, we'll be talking winter weather for what looks like a pretty significant period of time through the start of 2025. Now, looking at radar imagery, pretty quiet east of the Alps, but it's really kind of west of there. Once you get into the Ohio Valley, down into the Tennessee Valley, and then even into the south, seeing some pretty good rain showers in and around this morning. And it's a cold rain up for places like Chicago, Detroit, and then into other portions there of the Ohio Valley. But as you get further south, down here into Texas and into the mid-south, temperatures are becoming a bit warmer, moisture is increasing, and we are going to run the threat for severe weather, not only today, but really for the next couple of days as multiple storm systems kind of form in this region and work on through. So it's not all winter weather for everybody, unfortunately. Trust me, severe weather is another risk. And out west here into the Rockies and into California, Oregon, Washington state, I mean, you folks are getting it all. This is a powerful storm system right over the Seattle area, and I know you folks kind of get left out pretty often being on the West Coast, but this one is definitely probably the biggest weather maker right now across the country, with strong winds, heavy coastal rain, and big time mountain snow here into the Rockies from Utah all the way up into portions of Montana, Idaho, Washington state, and then even up into British Columbia there, seeing a big time snowfall. And this will continue through the foreseeable future, folks. We're going to get round and round and round of storm systems to work into the West Coast and continue to bring this heavy snow and coastal impacts as well. And you can see that very easily, I think, on our watches, warning, and advisory map here. We'll go ahead and start out west because, boy, oh boy, you folks are getting it all. Plenty of winter storm warnings in the pink, winter weather advisories there in the purple, and just a big old mixed bag. Even high wind warnings and advisories there along the coast of Washington here, including Seattle, all the way back down into Portland, Salem, and into portions of California as well, with winter storm warnings extending all the way back down to the Salt Lake City area, with those highest peaks going to pick up feet of snow before all is said and done out here. Now, other than that, seeing plenty of fog this morning out into the plains in those gray boxes. And again, that is part of that moisture return we're getting out of the Gulf that is going to lead to that severe weather potential, also producing fog. I will also mention some winter weather advisories up here into portions of Wisconsin and Michigan, and then special weather statements back down into the Chicago area. This is for the potential of a little bit of freezing rain or freezing drizzle that could accrete to a bit more than a glaze, maybe upwards of 1/10 of an inch of ice in places. And you need to be careful of that if you're traveling in these areas. Obviously, that warm air is advecting northward, and it's warmer than it has been, but you could be warmer than 10 degrees and be 31 degrees, and if it starts to drizzle, obviously you're going to have problems. So definitely watching out for that for folks up there in the Midwest. Now, I will tell you, some of our websites, specifically Tropical Tidbits, the one we normally use to zoom in on radar, is down today. Or not zoom in on radar, but zoom in on certain areas for forecast models is currently not working. So we're going to do this a little bit different. with some different maps and some different, I guess, techniques than we normally do, just to give you a heads up. Also, it's one of the reasons this video is coming out a little bit later than normal. I was kind of trying to get it to work, and I just realized it wasn't going to happen. So we'll go ahead and start with meteorology in minutes, though, and talk about this, and then we'll move on to the severe weather threat and talk about the snow out west, and then we'll end the video with a pretty long segment on that pattern change ahead. All right, here we go. This is what our vorticity or our energy map looks like out there right now. A big piece of energy down over Texas. I pointed that out on satellite earlier. And then another big area of energy into the PNW. Now, if I move this map ahead, kind of watch where all of these go, and it's going to, determine the forecast. By the time we get into overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning, I'll kind of back that up just a little bit more so you can kind of watch it here. Our first little piece of energy from Texas continues to swing east, gets into Arkansas and into portions of the southeast by tomorrow morning. But this bigger area of energy, and I'll tell you, it's kind of stretched out. It's not a super well-defined piece of energy, but you get the general idea of this trough axis laying somewhere in here, moving eastbound through Texas. And I do think tomorrow we will run a little bit of a severe weather risk with that. But then I think it's really Saturday that a more defined piece of energy kind of breaks off here. Here's Saturday afternoon. You'll notice that spin over Oklahoma, portions of Arkansas into the Ozarks. That's going to be a more of a defined severe weather producer here and could produce widespread severe weather into the mid-south here, kind of in that circled area on your map, even extending into portions of what we call Dixie Alley by the weekend, and then potentially by Sunday, that same piece of energy kind of keeps on riding through the United States, and we could get another day of potentially severe weather, maybe into the mid-Atlantic and down into the southeast, depending on how much instability returns. But trust me, there will definitely be plenty of wind shear with that. And then that gets us into the start of next week, and that's when the pattern will once again kind of begin to work back towards a more wintry pattern to start the new year. All right, severe weather probabilities today. Yeah, we got a big area, a slight risk here into portions of Louisiana, East Texas, even down into southern Arkansas. And this does include the threat of a couple tornadoes from Tyler, Texas, down into Houston, Galveston, Shreveport, Monroe, even Baton Rouge. Good old Garth Brooks song, Calling Baton Rouge. Well, you might have to call home and let them know there is a bit of a severe weather threat if you have family down this way during the afternoon of today and tomorrow. Tornado threat simmers down a little bit, but still there into southern Mississippi and back down into the New Orleans area, kind of north of Lake Pontchartrain there, including the Gulfport area, Hattiesburg, Laurel, Meridian, and Jackson. So a bit of a tornado threat tomorrow as well. But then we get to day 3, and we're going to do it all again. Another blow up of severe weather ingredients over the heart of Mississippi, Louisiana. But notice this marginal risk extending even into Birmingham, Little Rock, Memphis, and then down into the Houston and Galveston area. Going to be something that you need to monitor as we're getting out of 2024. And trust me, sometimes the deadliest tornadoes are this time of year. It's when people aren't expecting it, people are out traveling, they're out with family, and the last thing on your mind is severe weather, and you need to be aware of that. Now, I'm not expecting major tornado outbreaks or anything from this, but any chance of severe weather is chance enough for you to pay attention to it. All right, with that said, let's go and zoom into some of these severe weather hotspots. And again, we don't have tropical tidbits, so we're really going to have to zoom in today as pivotal weather kind of has different mapping, which is okay. Every website and every product has their pros and cons, but this is what we will use today. Now, this is the high resolution rapid refresh model, and I'll move it throughout the afternoon. Notice by the time we get later today, and I know we don't have a time here, but I'll go ahead and just underline up here. It says, Thursday, 12/26/21Z. If you don't know what that means, that is today at 21 Zulu time or Greenwich time in England, which is about a 6 or 7 hour difference from the Central Daylight Time out here. So this is about 1-2 o'clock this afternoon, and plenty of storms beginning to fire up into East Texas, portions of Louisiana, even up into the Red River Valley could see a couple strong storms, including that threat of tornadoes. Now you'll notice this is not your pretty little supercell setup where they're nice and lined up one-on-one across a dry line. This is going to be kind of a messy setup today, so these are likely going to be rain-wrapped tornadoes, any tornadoes that do form into East Texas, Louisiana, and eventually overnight tonight congealing into more of a quasi-linear convective system, aka just a squall line working on through portions of Louisiana there. That could bring strong winds, and then through tomorrow morning, waking up with a couple strong storms along that squall line into Mississippi, back down into Louisiana, and even a couple of those stronger storms getting down across the Gulf of Mexico. And then we get into Friday afternoon, folks, and you'll notice not a whole lot showing up here. So really, the severe threat tomorrow is going to be more during the morning hours down into that area of southern Mississippi and into portions of Louisiana for your early Friday morning. So definitely watching that. And then again, by Friday afternoon, looks to clear out pretty significantly. But if we move the map eastbound, let me change it here to the significant tornado parameter. This just shows you where we have ingredients for tornadoes, and definitely going to be on the up kind of in this time period. So this is Friday morning. You'll notice not a huge threat, but even overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, a couple, bubbling up areas here for some tornadic ingredients into Louisiana, East Texas, and then small ingredients kind of surge back north into that area of Mississippi, back down into Louisiana during the day Friday, especially during the morning. Now, the question will be in the afternoon, do any secondary storms pop up? It's possible, but really the morning looks to be a more confident time frame for severe weather. And then check this out, folks. We get into Saturday afternoon, and look at this, another surge of tornadic ingredients through Louisiana, Mississippi, even clipping East Texas out here. Not super high numbers, but once you start getting past 1 on the SIGTOR parameter here, that's when it gets a little bit more of something you need to watch and something you need to pay attention to. And you'll notice that kind of continues here through Saturday evening in this area. And then by the time we move this into Sunday afternoon, still some of those ingredients for tornadoes hanging around, even getting into portions of the Carolinas. So severe weather going to be a threat over the near term. And I know everyone wants to talk about winter weather. Trust me too, and we're going to. But do not sleep on this severe weather threat by any means. All right, let's pick up where we left off with some global models, and I'll tell you, they're kind of fighting it out a little bit here with this storm. This is Friday afternoon, so this is, let's do the math, tomorrow afternoon. This is not far from now at all, and the model's already, kind of struggling here. But here's the storm system on the European, kind of centered over Missouri during your Friday, and with that, the severe weather threat would be further south and east. Also, at the same time frame, high pressure sitting over the northeast and kind of pumping cold air down the back of the apps here and producing pretty strong cold air damming Friday afternoon, which in itself can sometimes, cause spin and helicity along the edge of it where that warm air is trying to override it. So plenty of ingredients for severe weather ongoing, a lot of little mesoscale features we're going to need to watch here through the weekend, but we'll move this ahead on the European model. That first little storm gets on out of here, pulls up north into Wisconsin and Michigan. And then here's the second storm. This is for Saturday afternoon. Another piece of energy breaking out of the Rockies and moving south through Texas. And look at all of this kind of storminess forming from East Texas through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, even into Georgia. Strong storms getting their act together Saturday afternoon like we saw. And then eventually we get into Sunday morning and strong low pressure moving over Kentucky, Tennessee. I think this is a storm that's going to catch some folks off guard. This will bring some breezy conditions, some heavy rainfall here through the second half of your weekend through portions of the east. And by Sunday afternoon, do not be surprised if enough instability returns for a bit of a severe weather threat into the Carolinas, Georgia, maybe even Virginia. Going to be a lot of spin out there. The question will be, do we have enough instability to kind of maintain that spin in terms of severe weather, as the European shows here. And then this pulls up into the northeast. Again, a strong storm system, plenty of wind, heavy rain along the I-95 corridor overnight Sunday into Monday. And then this is when things change. Kind of watch this storm system right here for next Monday, and we'll talk about that one in depth in just a moment. Now, what about the GFS? Well, same story here, has the storm systems. We'll move this into tomorrow afternoon, or tomorrow morning rather. Actually, no, this is Saturday morning rather. Here comes that storm that we were talking about over Texas and Oklahoma. Pretty same, idea here on the location. Also, another thing to note, if you're up in the Pacific Northwest, look at this continuation of mountain snow and coastal rain. It's just round after round after round through the weekend. The GFS here, though, notice how much quicker it pulls this storm north. The European had this thing over eastern Kentucky. The GFS has it over St. Louis. So when I said there's a difference, I mean, this is only a couple days away, folks, and these models are, kind of fighting it out over this storm. So imagine, how difficult it's going to be to predict snow 10 plus days from now, which again, we'll get there in just a moment. But here we go. Same general idea, though. Pulls north, just quite different with the location of it. It would probably bring a little bit less of a severe weather threat on Sunday. Would still have the severe weather threat on Saturday, definitely with the GFS solution, but it might be a little bit further north than the European, and the hazards might be a little bit different. So that'll be something to monitor as we continue tracking this. But another big difference by the weekend, because this is so far kind of west compared to the European model, we actually get a little bit of icing here into the interior northeast due to that leftover cold air. You're getting less warm air advection right over that. So because of that, some of that cold air is able to last at least at the surface to produce some freezing rain and some freezing drizzle during a Sunday afternoon in the northeast and then up into Canada. And then the models get back on track with a storm right over the central part of the country by next Monday afternoon. So before we kind of talk about that pattern change, I do quickly want to mention this: how much snow is going to fall out west, because these are some pretty high totals, folks. And you'll see here up into the mountains of Idaho, and this is over the next 72 hours, I should add. Mountains of Idaho back into Yellowstone, and then around Salt Lake City. We're going to be counting it in feet, folks. These are 2, 3, 4 feet of snow, especially even up here in the mountains of Washington State. Some areas could get 40 plus inches of snow before all is said and done. Kind of through this pattern. Same story back down into Oregon, and then lesser totals down into California through the Sierra Nevadas. But still, half a foot to a foot of snow is going to be more than enough to cause problems out into the Rockies. So definitely, if you're going out for any ski trips, you're in luck with a pattern like this. All right. Let's pause for a second, let's breathe, and let's completely flip the script, because we just got done talking about severe weather and, active weather out west. Well, all of that's going to eventually work east through the United States, and I'm definitely expecting a big pattern change into January. Now, confidence-wise, we're very confident cold air is going to spill back east. I think that is something that, I'd be willing to put my life on, or maybe not my life, but I'd put a lot on it for sure. As for the winter weather chances, the snowfall and maybe ice and everything else, that's where we really need to kind of wait a little bit and figure things out. But the chance for winter storms is increasing significantly, and I do think there will be at least a couple here through the start of January. The question is, though, who gets it and how much do they get? Well, let's look at some models here. These are the GFS ensembles for this Sunday afternoon, and this is what's going to start. You see this little piece of blue up into the PNW? This is going to cross the country, and behind it, funnel in colder air, and that will be the start of this pattern change. And you'll see that happen on the GFS model here through the later half of this week and then into early next week, getting into even the northern plains here by Monday evening into Tuesday, and then into the east by about a week or so from now, really flipping the calendar right into January 1st. And then after that, folks, look at this blue hang around, and this is storm signal number 1. There's kind of 2 time frames I'm watching for potential winter weather chances. This is the first one right around January 4th, give or take a day or two. Strong troughing showing up in the east here, and this would support likely low pressure formations somewhere along the coast. And could that potentially ride up the coast? That's something we'll need to watch for sure. That's just storm signal 1, though, and that's getting now within 10 days, and the models are still holding on to it. And then after that, another big storm signal right into here. This is around the 8th or 9th of January, right in the same region. Another big trough in the east. Again, this would promote likely some sort of storm system, and all this blue is cold air. So obviously, if you get a storm system with the cold air, that spells winter weather for someone. But that kind of is the hard part. Who is the someone? Is it the southeast? Is it the northeast? Is it the Ohio Valley? Is it the Midwest? Plenty of areas still in play here for this pattern. And then you'll notice the GFS kind of just hangs on to this cold pattern all the way through the 11th of January. So let's look at the European now. I'm going to kind of zoom things in a little bit for you. This is the same time frame. This is kind of Sunday into Monday. Let me back it up just a little bit here. Sunday evening, here's that pattern changing piece into the Pacific Northwest. This is that severe weather potential over the east for Sunday that we talked about. This is that storm kind of riding up and kind of cutting through, as we say, a cutter, meaning that, it kind of starts down into Texas and then rides up through the central part of the country, where another storm would be a coastal storm, which would do something like that. But this storm, again, not going to do this one, but instead will cut through the country, just to kind of tell you what the term means there. So here we go. Watching that piece of blue in the Pacific Northwest, gets down into the eastern part of the country by next Monday, Tuesday, and it could bring some winter weather of its own, I do think, by the middle of next week, but really more of a pattern changing piece. So this one's going to bring some rain for sure, and more importantly, going to bring the cold behind it. And after that cold is established, notice on the European same time frame, right around January 4th here, a strong trough over the eastern half of the country. And this would promote against some sort of storm system on the diverging side of the trough. So when you see this, don't expect the storm to be over here or right here. The storm is always going to be kind of on the right-hand side of the center of the trough. So with a pattern like this, it would support somewhere maybe in and around the northeast coastline. And obviously, with all this cold air, that could produce something big. That's storm signal 1 on the European. The GFS and the European both agree on storm signal 2. And again, on the European, the center of this trough over the northeast. So what does that mean? Well, it means, again, it's going to be cold. We're going to have a stormy pattern, meaning, low pressure, not necessarily severe weather. And you can kind of see that on the operational runs. This is the GFS. This is this weekend into early next week, Monday morning. Here's that energy working through the Pacific Northwest. Watch it kind of dive on through here and bring some active weather with it. Some snow through maybe Nebraska, Iowa, and also some rain kind of on the warmer side of the storm, cuts up north, and behind it, cold air moves in. And this is something the GFS operational run, at least, has kind of been hinting at. This is the first couple days of January, folks. This is even kind of before that favorable time frame of the 4th that we were talking about, a little piece of coastal energy trying to get going along this trough. And the GFS has snow in the south within, 10 days or so, with snow over portions of Arkansas by next Thursday. Only a week from now, snow over portions of Mississippi, Kentucky, the mountains of North Carolina, and then kind of ramps up, and on the backside tries to even get some snow in Virginia there by next Friday and gets on out of here. And kind of an interesting look there. And I would argue that's not even really the signal for the first storm period. Now, maybe it is. Maybe just the operational run on the GFS is moving it a little bit quicker than the ensembles. That's possible. But something we'll watch for that first signal. And then after that, we get well out into la-la land past 10 days. But you notice the European, or the GFS rather, when I say cold air, folks, it brings the boom by, the 8th of January. This is that second storm period time frame. In fact, if I were to take a sounding here, just out of my own curiosity, let's move this ahead. This would be probably morning lows over, let's say, northern Indiana in this time frame. Let's see what the temperature is. -2 degrees. I know you can't really see that. Let me move it out of the way. Yeah, down here, see that blue line and the green line, and the red line's the temperature, -2 degrees at the surface. That's borderline polar vortex air working in with thickness values, below 500. That is truly Arctic air on the GFS model once we get past about the 6th of January, and with it, a storm signal too. So that's kind of that second time period to watch on the models. Now, what about the European? Obviously, everyone kind of, with the all hail the Euro ideology here sometimes. And let's see what it says, kind of starting at the same time frame. Here's that energy up into the Pacific Northwest, working on through, bringing some snow, bringing some rain, getting its act together. And, this one even, I wouldn't be surprised if it tries to produce a little bit of severe weather with this first storm early next week. Could maybe be the last hurrah of severe weather around next Monday or Tuesday, especially on the European model, further south with the low, maybe a little bit more instability down here in the southeast to work with. But either way, both models agree it brings the cold air behind it. And this is the time frame the GFS rather had a little bit of snow in the south. And you'll notice on the European, nothing happening there with that one. But it does bring the cold air, and then as we get well out into time, you'll notice an active little kind of clipper system track on the European working on through and bringing some snow, bringing some rain, and continuing to bring these shots of cold air. But one problem on the European run is our trough is actually a little too far east. So you'll notice here is the center of the trough. It kind of gets right down over the Carolinas into the mid-Atlantic. But remember, the diverging side is on the right-hand side. So that's, well offshore for a lot of folks. And, is almost a little too far east, almost a little too good for snow, if you will. So what you really want to do is back up this trough a little bit, get the center of it more right here. So then that diverging side is in here, and then you get the chance to ride something up the coast. And that's what we'll hope for, and that's what we'll watch for. But again, we're confident the cold is there, and that's kind of the first step for winter weather. So if we kind of look at the ensembles, and see where they think the best chance of snow is. This is starting with the first piece of energy, obviously bringing big snow out into the Rockies here on the GEFS, excuse me, working through the northern plains, bringing some snow to those regions, and then the ensembles for the GFS. I'll give it credit. At the same time, the operational run has some sort of weird mischief in the south. Some ensemble members agreeing and trying to pace some snow here into the mid-south by next week, meaning later next week into the weekend, and even, has a couple members bringing snow into the deep south and the Carolinas by next weekend. But I'll tell you, I'm skeptical of it, and you probably should be too. We'll see. Maybe it trends that way. Maybe it doesn't. Your guess is as good as mine. We'll continue to watch and wait and see, though. And then after that, this is when things get a little bit more interesting, I think, this time frame through the first week of January, through the 4th. We'll say the 4th through the 15th or so of January. And I know that's a big time frame, but I think multiple storms going to work through during about that 10-day period here through the lower 48. And with that, snow chances increasing after the 7th into the 8th. And you'll notice the ensembles kind of all over the place. So there are storm signals. All the ensembles have some sort of energy flying around. Just how it links up, where it links up, that's the big question. But, if you live in the east, this is a good sign. This is a good signal for snow in the month of January. And the European ensembles, let's look at that. Here's that first little storm. High chances of snow into Nebraska, South Dakota, even portions of Iowa here by early next week. And then after that, that time period, the GFS had really nothing down here in the European. Maybe a couple members have something into the mid part of the country, into the plains. Nothing too crazy looking there. There's definitely some lake effect here on the European by next Friday after that first shot of cold air. But then the bigger snowfall chances kind of begin. You'll see kind of almost a clipper look here, but even snow chances down into the Carolinas during that period I talked about around the 7th or the 8th, seeing stuff kind of show up here on the map in the eastern half of the country. But I'll tell you, folks, we've got a ways to go. We got a long way to go. And I still think it's going to snow. I think we're going to have winter storms. The question is where, who, and how severe. That's kind of the tough part to figure out. And that's what you're going to have to come back over the next couple of days and probably really over the next couple of weeks to find out. Now, temperatures, this is where we're pretty confident, pretty warm already for many of us. Now, I will mention very quickly, Friday afternoon, cold air damming set up into the southeast. It's going to stay chilly into the Carolinas and Virginia with this, even maybe into northeast Georgia. But after that, then we warm up. Everyone's in the red before that first little shot of cold air after the storm system early next week. This is next Thursday, blue working back into the southeast, into the central part of the country. And then that just kind of opens up the train for shot after shot of polar and maybe even Arctic air through at least the first half of January, I think, or at least we'll say the 10th or so of January. The model's feeling pretty confident about that. Alrighty, folks, that's all I got for you here on this, what day of the week is it? Let's see, it is Thursday. Sorry. But yeah, again, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video, comment, let me know where you're watching from. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.